A whole raft of new documents has now been published by this committee, the same committee that questioned Rupert and James Murdoch earlier in the summer. With me is one of the committee members, Tom Watson. Thanks for joining us. What do the documents show, in essence?
Well, they show contradictory evidence between James Murdoch and two of his senior executives. They allege that James Murdoch was aware that illegal voicemails transcripts existed, and that led to the payment of a large amount of money to Gordon Taylor. There's also a revelation of a letter from Clive Goodman appealing his sacking in 2007, where he alleges that everyone in the daily editorial meeting of News of the World was familiar with conversations about phone hacking. That session was chaired by Andy Coulson, the editor of the paper, and he also says that Coulson and the lawyer promised him that he would keep his job if he didn't implicate others in wrongdoing as part of his mitigation when he was found guilty of phone hacking. So some very serious and explosive revelations in there.
And even more explosive, perhaps, that two copies of this letter from Clive Goodman, the disgraced reporter, were sent to your committee. One was redacted by News International, taking out any reference to Andy Coulson's editorial.
Yes, for a company that say they want to get to the truth and they've got a zero tolerance for wrongdoing, it does seem curious that in their version they would remove the parts of the letter that suggest that the editorial conference discussed phone hacking and that there was an attempt to silence Clive Goodman with the promise of a job. The other lawyers who were criticised by Rupert Murdoch at our previous evidence session, Harbottle and Lewis, were less discreet and made sure that we read the words that said that.
So two different versions of the same letter, one with more information, one with less information. Yeah. Obviously, you're going to want to talk to James Murdoch again, aren't you?
Yes, it's highly likely James Murdoch will be invited back to give evidence. Before that, we want to take a very detailed account of what the former editor Colin Myler knew and the former lawyer Tom Crone knew. We've moved from the exposure of the hacking scandal to the second phase, which is the very details of the cover-up. And we want to get our facts lined up before we consider bringing James Murdoch back. But every member of the committee was determined to get to the facts. I think it's highly likely he'll be with us probably in October.
And his father, Rupert?
Well, because Rupert Murdoch had so little grasp of the detail in his previous evidence session, it's probably less likely we invite him. Although he does come in for very great criticism from Harbottle and Lewis, who say that his evidence was inaccurate, self-serving and misleading.
This is their own lawyers?
This is the lawyer, the previous lawyers they hired in 2007. Yes, so a very curious state of affairs for Mr. Murdoch as well.
OK, well, we'll see where this goes. Thank you very much indeed for spending the time to talk to us. So this phone hacking scandal, you thought it may have been over, punctuated by a phone pie that almost landed on Rupert Murdoch, but it looks like James Murdoch certainly will be back in that committee room. We don't know whether the public will be allowed in this time.